You're listening to The Building Code, your guide for a better way to run your business. I'm Tom Houghton.
Hey, Tom. I'm Paul Worth.
Fancy meeting you here.
You knew that.
I did. I knew that.
That was for our audience.
That was for our audience, indeed.
Just a level set.
Yeah, and for our audience, we've got a great just string of podcasts coming up. We've, of course, come off some great podcasts talking about our Stevie Award. We just had Danny Wang on the podcast. Before that, Brent and Kara. I mean, I feel like our guests just keep leveling up, and I think today's guest just raises the bar again. Today on the podcast, we're going to be joined by Sarah Listi, digital creator of Tool Girls Garage. You can find her on Instagram. She also has a blog, toolgirlsgarage.com. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
No pressure there from Tom.
Right? I know,
Be
yeah.
greater than the last great one.
I know she'll deliver.
Yeah,
I've been following her on
There you
Instagram
go.
for a while, so the content that you put out there is fantastic. Again, if you're not following her on Instagram, definitely go there. You have the blog as well. The only two platforms.
I have a YouTube name saved that I maybe one day will start to actually actively post to. There's like a couple of short videos there. I'm on TikTok, but more for fun. I don't really get it. I think it's like a generational thing. I'm getting there.
Okay.
Getting there. But yeah, so I always say basically really Instagram, Facebook, and the blog.
Now, I feel, and we'll get into your Instagram, but I feel like what you do with tools and TikTok, there could be like a musical, you know what I mean?
Oh, you're gonna like a stomp routine?
Like something.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it could play.
There if you're creative. Like
Sure.
if you, and it's not even really creativity, it's like, it's just time to have like another platform to manage, and it can be so like consuming. I've had a few videos there that I posted because I only post like once or twice a week. I try to get on there. But like I'll have this one random video that's had like, 600,000 or 700,000 views.
Mm-hmm.
And then my next one will get like 400. So I don't really get it. But
That's
like,
what Danny was saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's really inconsistent.
The
Really.
algorithm is still working that out.
Yeah.
So
But it's fun.
Yeah.
So I think I just look at it as it's fun. I mean, I think I have like 11,000 followers now on there, and I'm not really sure what I did because I never really did. My dog.
I'm sure the 13-year-old with 4 million followers feels the exact same way.
yeah, exactly. They're like, I did something.
I guess
I'm
I'm
famous.
just-
Yeah.
It's a good way to make you feel inadequate whenever you have like people that are like post 2 videos and they've got like 50,000 followers, and that's how TikTok works. Like you just
Mm-hmm.
get lucky or you don't, and it's weird.
There you go.
Instagram's more blue collar, where you got a huge following. You're like over 58,000. So that's great.
Actually, we're going to round out on 60 here soon. I'm so excited.
That's awesome.
Crazy.
Now
No idea what to think of that.
it
Very
says
surreal.
it says Texas girl, woodworker, mom, forever student, and storyteller. That's probably a good segue into just telling people how'd you get to where you were, and what is your profile from your view.
There's a lot there. So I was really raised by my parents, obviously. Really, Miter? I'm sorry, guys.
That's okay.
Okay,
It's
so
okay.
I think,
I'll just start that over.
and also I just caught your dog's name is Miter.
Oh yeah, after the miter saw.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
That's
That
fantastic.
plays. It's on brand.
Yeah, so maybe he'll be calm now that he can see me. Apparently that's really stressful.
Yeah.
Okay, so no, I was really like, when I say born and raised with power tools in hand, like my dad was the guy who fixed everything, remodeled, everything in our house over the course of time. When I was a teenager, he added an addition on the back of the house. I mean, I really credit a lot of like my interest in building and construction into that. What's ironic is as a kid, I wasn't necessarily into it, other than I thought it was cool that my dad did it. And I asked, 10,000 questions, as kids do. We all know how that goes. They have a lot of questions. And I
Parent
certainly
life.
asked a lot. Yeah. You got to have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
My daughter's like that. I'm just like, guys, how can you have any more questions? It's like 8:00 in the morning. We're like,
Right.
but so basically, as I got older, obviously, your interests change, and then you kind of start to evolve as a person, and then circle back to some of your earlier experiences. And so I was really lucky when I got into it that I had all of this background of working on engines with my dad and building and woodworking, et cetera. And one of my favorite memories of, I was like 4, was him cutting out these Texas clocks on a bandsaw. And I always reference that because I was so young, but the memory is so vivid in my head. And I think it just makes you really realize what you can do with the right tools, and also patience and like a willingness to try, and, a willingness to fail too, because I think that's important. but basically, as I got older, I worked in a couple different industries. I worked in the apartment industry for a time as a general manager, which was really fun because I got to see a lot of different construction elements through that, a lot of different renovation processes, and ran into a lot of problems when you're running like 600 units of apartments.
Mm-hmm.
So it's cool because it gave me another perspective more from a business side of the cost of managing some of that stuff. And then as I left that, we decided it was time, to start a family, which was a very hard road, and finally got our little man, Ben. He's 9 now. And he really kind of inspired me to get back to it because he's a very hands-on learner. He does have autism. And so it was one of those things too, that it was this beautiful way to connect with him where you didn't necessarily need conventional communication, and I just went at it full force and really never stopped. I mean, obviously those first few years, it was kind of as I could because I had, then I had another kid later on. So it's been busy, but I just love it. And that's where my heart is. And it's this perfect blend of artistic, creativity and then the hands-on part where you're just going. And I say forever student in my profile because I never want to be done learning. I think that's the best part of what I do is there's never going to be a day where I feel like I know everything I can learn from this world,
You'll never exhaust how many power tools are out there.
No, my gosh, because every time you turn around, there's a new tool or new technology, new batteries, new motors, gosh, remember when brushless motors came out, that was all the rage. And now it's so common. It's the norm, and 5 years from now, who knows what's going to be there,
Do you remember that, Tom?
I do. I was actually going to think, I was thinking ahead.
Wait.
To
okay.
So I know Sarah uses Ego tools.
Yes.
I'm a big fan of electric green tools. And
they're so good.
They're so amazing. And I know we shared a moment on Instagram because we're excited about what they're releasing next. Of course, they're teasing all the way until 2021 for this, but.
Yeah.
What are they releasing next? Tell the audience.
We're leaving you hanging there.
That was.
Off the record, I may have seen, not really off the record, that was a joke, but I may have seen some early
prototypes.
Mm-hmm. Not in person.
Okay.
It looks really cool.
Yeah.
So I'm
I would say that in terms of teasing a product, they did a good job initially, but then the more they revealed, it looks like it's a ride-on lawnmower.
Yeah.
It
was very obvious.
Yeah,
what it was. I don't think they were really hiding it at that point. Yeah. And I laughed because when I saw the video, I'd seen it about a month before we were told we could release it, basically. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, finally. We've been talking about this for so long, and it's such a cool, they really took it to the next level. It's going to be impressive.
See?
They did good with it.
Is it a solar mower? Is that what you're saying?
No, just powered by battery.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. It's on their Ego platform.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's go back to the beginning because that was a great sort of run at how you got here. But we dove into the tools section.
I know. My ADD is always in full effect, especially in the mornings.
Well, if you get Tom started on technology in the future, we're all in trouble.
Yeah.
But honestly, so taking the leap into your first video, what was your first video? Do you remember what sort of said? Because that is the main leap, and obviously you progressed slowly after that, and now you've really got some momentum. But doing that first one must have been some sort of, let's do this and see what happens.
It's funny because in my personal life, I'm really a pretty quiet person these days. I wasn't always that way, but I've got to the point where I live in a little space of Texas, and I'm kind of in my own little world, which is really nice. Because I had previous media experience, it wasn't as intimidating as I think it would have been for some. Mm-hmm. But honestly, I went into it thinking if I inspire one person, then I've done what my goal was. My thought process was, I think people get so intimidated and so scared of tools, and they don't know how to use them, or they feel like if they don't get a project right the first time that they shouldn't keep trying, and that's just wrong. You have to, there's not a project I've ever done that everything went to the letter, to the T perfect. Mm-hmm. You have to learn to adjust and manipulate your plans and just to keep evolving to get what result you want out of it. And that requires you to be open-minded with it, and at the end of the day, if you're scared to fail, you will, because you're not going to try. And so I think for me, that was a big part of when I started the page, I didn't think it was going to ever turn into much. I mean, you hope for that, right? But you hope that you're going to reach people. But I kind of assumed if 5 people followed me, I was happy. And if 500 people followed me, I was happy. And it just didn't really, I don't know. I just wanted to share what I loved. And the fact that it's played out and so many people connect to it is just this massive, I mean, I still can't wrap my head around it most days.
Well, it makes sense because I've often thought our generation, you know, I'm always going to YouTube for home improvement stuff.
Yeah.
Like if you don't know how to do it, you go to YouTube and like that's how you know, unclog a dishwasher or replace whatever. I mean, what did you do before, you know, the internet?
You got out your encyclopedia?
Right.
Is that what you did?
Or you asked a friend. I mean, it used to just be word of mouth.
Right. And it takes me back to like, you know, you watching your dad do it. I mean, maybe there was a lot of trial and error back then, even more than there is today, because there was zero sort of.
And then too, you can take things you've learned from even something unrelated, something like engine work. You can take something you've learned from how they structure, you know, a carburetor, to how you build a piece of furniture. I mean, people don't think of it that way, but there really is a lot of cross use with that information. And once you've learned how to make a basic frame for a piece of furniture, okay, well now framing a small shed is now somehow approachable. I mean, you just have to learn to take what you're doing and apply it in other ways. And that the idea of strength and structure and making sure point A connects to point B, like that's probably the hardest part to really understand. But then once you do, I mean, all the rest of it's just domino effects. You know, learning to keep things square and level. And I mean, they all kind of play into each other, you know? And so for me, I got lucky because I didn't have to YouTube stuff. I would be like, hey, Dad, I need your help with this. And he'd be like, oh, okay, here's what you should do. And I mean, it was amazing because I got to learn a lot. And my first car was a 1993 Toyota Celica. So we're going to age me a bit here.
That's all right. Okay. No, that's classic.
Nice.
Yeah, I was so excited. I bought it in 2002. I bought it at 15 years old. I had saved, so I've always been a hard worker, which is good. I don't do well with idle time. I'm not the person that like the idea of a vacation to me where I just sit there and like stare at this beach or something like is lost on me. I would want to be like reading or sketching, or like there had to be I just don't sit still well. You know what I mean? And so when I bought that car, I had saved for years babysitting. And I mean, I got my first job at Kroger and I worked there on the weekends and over the summer. And so I saved forever. And my dad and I spent a ton of time fixing it up. And man, that taught me a lot because you go from, you know, basic like oil change, air filters, et cetera. But now we're looking at, you know, all the spark plugs and struts and all this stuff, brake pads and rotors. I mean, it's like stuff that you maybe normally wouldn't see, even if your dad was pretty handy, but like, we're going to go a step further. Man, that was a cool experience.
Yeah. Taking it to the next level.
Yeah.
Yeah. And getting familiar with tools too, not only as a child, but as a, you know, a teenager, you know, to be able to have a little more practical use with it, you know?
That's awesome.
Yeah. It was fun. It was like my favorite memory, I think, because I was, you know, being a teenager is hard.
Yes.
And that part wasn't, you know, like it's hard.
Yeah.
All the emotions.
Yeah. So you do so much. And I love that you just said, like, you know, you're just always constantly going, like Paul said at the very beginning. So not only do you do all this stuff online, but you're also a mom and you're also in an industry that I would say is probably male dominated. How do you handle all of this? I mean, I feel like this is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it just comes down to what you love. I don't think if I didn't love it, I wouldn't do it. You know, I think I find sketching out furniture designs at night to be very relaxing, but that's a necessary part of the job. I find writing articles and discussing tools and even getting further into the mechanics of it to be so therapeutic and exciting. And I try to think of that one person reading it who's like, I didn't know that. And that's so inspiring to me because it's so humbling to be able to be like, to reach that one person who's like, I didn't understand that that's how that worked. You know what I mean? Like that's so overwhelming in a way. And I feel like there's this huge responsibility there that it's something I love and I love that I get to share it. And now, you know, I mean, it is definitely tough with kids because sometimes I'm kind of like, guys, I need 15 minutes to finish these cuts. I need you guys to chill out, you know, and thankfully they're really very tolerant and patient. And so much of what I've been doing lately with the renovations and even some of the furniture projects have really been for our house. So that kind of helps, I think, because it's all stuff that they're going to now see in the dining room or in the living room. And I think that's like a really fun aspect of it. As far as like the male dominated part, I'll be honest, that part can be tough. The time I get it the most, you know, I have the mansplainers where they're like, oh, it's like, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to re-educate you real quick. But I try to also take that. I think in life in general, when you're faced in a situation where you're not in the, we're going to quote normal category for a group, you can either spend your time being defensive, or you can spend your time saying, let me show them that they're wrong, right? In a way that's respectful and in a way that maybe does open their eyes for the next person too. And so I just try to respond in, you know, with information that I have. And I always say, you know, thanks for your feedback. I appreciate that, you know, whatever. And it is how I feel, because hopefully, even if it didn't come across very nice, maybe that person, as I said earlier, you know, treats the next person nicer, or maybe it changes their mind about whether or not a woman can do this, and they can, and that shouldn't ever be a thought, but it is. And so it's an unfair part, but it is what it is. And that's part of it. I notice it a lot too at like media, like press events. I'm sort of like, there's a handful of girls that, you know, there may be 100 men and there's, you know, 4 girls doing it, or 5 girls, 5 women. And, you know, that number keeps getting bigger. But it's kind of weird, but 90% of the people that are doing it too, like peers, I would say, they all, if they know who you are and follow you, they've all been nothing but respectful and supportive. And so I think that's amazing. I'm sure there's oddballs out, but the community itself is really, really pretty amazing. And I think that's how you change the narrative. You know what I mean? And I really not met anybody who didn't support more women going into the trades and being a part of this world. And I hope that that's something that always continues. You know, I hope that's something I can continue to help motivate. If I motivate like one young girl to take up, you know, gosh, being an electrician, my God, how cool would that be? I'm not an electrician, but that doesn't mean that, I mean, I want that for them, you know?
Yeah. That's awesome. I think it's such an inspirational.
Thank you.
You know, I mean, we both, Paul's got daughters. I've got 2 daughters. So, I mean, we totally connect with that. And I think it's great what you're putting out there into the world. And it's so timely too, with everything going on, to make sure that we're not being closed-minded, that we are being open and seeing from a different perspective. And I love that, you know, that's unfortunately for you, a little bit of the banner that you have to carry, but you're making it easier for the next generation.
I think too, you know, from the personal perspective, I've had my son, you know, I mentioned he has autism, and he's, you know, I've watched this world put him in boxes, right? And I think it's easy for me, especially after those first few years when there is that big struggle and you're really working through things, and not really so much just on his side, but just trying to get the world to see him for who he is and not who they want him to be. I think that you learn that those boxes are really damaging. They're really dangerous. And so why should I live in any box that I don't want to be in, you know? And I think the beauty of it is nobody should be in any boxes. Like, what's wrong with tipping our toes in all the little cubes? You know what I mean? I think there's something cool about that too, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's a great correlation, honestly.
Speaking of boxes, we're gonna turn this to a positive here. Let's talk about building stuff, building some boxes. What kind of projects are you most looking forward to? I know one of my favorite ones that I saw you do, because it's really popular in the neighborhood that I live in here in Omaha, is lime washing. You did that a couple months ago, I think. And so you can, again, go find the blog post, go look at the images of lime washing if you want to know more about that. But what are you looking forward to most next? Big projects coming your way. Can you tease something for our audience?
So I have a really big master bedroom built-in project that I'm going to do. So this is going to cycle back a little bit more on the woodworking side, but also kind of general construction too, in a way, because built-ins are somewhat common, at least down here in the South, in most homes you walk into. So a little bit of that general construction carpentry side, we're going to kind of mix the pots a little bit. But you know, I built those nightstands for our master bedroom, which were really, really cool. I was so excited with how those turned out. But we're going to do a big, like 12-foot long built-in in our master that's going to serve as like furniture, because our master bedroom's laid out really funny. So it's about finding a solution to a problem, basically. and there's not really places you can put furniture. So nothing's really where it should be. But there's one area that we're going to make this huge built-in. And so that's a really exciting project. And then on the renovation side, I'm really hoping to start the master bathroom towards the end of summer. But like, it's going to be a gut. Like, it's a big one.
Okay.
I know, but it's exciting. Like,
stay tuned.
Our last 2 homes were new homes. And so finding projects like that to do were tough. Cause I mean, you're like, well, do I really want to replace this? I mean, it's not what I want or how I envision it, but it's a year old, you know, like it's a little, I kind of, that was a big deal when we bought this home. We had to relocate to be closer to one of our kiddos' schools. And I was like, that one thing is I didn't want something brand new. I wanted something I could like sink my teeth into.
Mm-hmm.
Some days, maybe I bit off more than I could chew with house, but that's okay.
Yeah.
But it's a learning thing. Like, that's the deal. Like, you start to see what they did wrong and you're like, why would they have done that? And you educate yourself too. Cause sometimes I'm like, was there a reason they did this? Why would this have happened? And I ask questions of people, and you know, even that teaches you that much more, you know, why did they do it, or why'd they cut that corner? You know, that part's really cool. So those 2 are big. And then, I mean, I have a lot of smaller stuff, a lot of decor stuff. I mean, I'll be doing more painting, which is not really fun, but you know, there's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot coming.
Okay.
That I'm pretty pumped about. Yeah.
All
a
right.
lot more furniture. Another headboard that's going to be cool.
I love it. And you're all doing this yourself. It's not like you have, like, that's the other thing I think it's great. It's like, you're not like you have a team of people behind you.
Oh no. Yeah.
That's
that
all
would be
producing
nice.
this.
So, I mean,
Send help, please.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wish I had like one person. This is going to sound so bad, but I like things really organized, and my shop looks like a bomb went off in it. Like, it's so bad and so disorganized, and stuff is everywhere, and it stresses me out so bad that I always think, man, if I had one person I could hire, it would be just come behind me and put the stuff away.
Sure.
Because you're always so busy with the next project, and sometimes I have like 3 or 4 things happening simultaneously, and that's like, man, that's intimidating when you're trying to, you know, also, you know, keep a clear mind, and you're like, there's stuff everywhere. That would be another big project, though. Is we're going to do something with the shop, either extend the one I have or build from scratch on the other side of the property.
All right.
That's a big one. I know.
And does I mean, obviously you're doing so many, because of everything that's happening in the world, you're doing so many more projects at home now. How's the family doing with all of this, like, constant upheaval, you know?
They are so used to it. My husband has to be a saint, I think, in another life or something. He came home, like, I joked about this on Instagram because it's funny, people are always very curious about my husband, and his name's Matt. He's like the most private person. He has like no real social media. I mean, he has it, but he doesn't. And so he has his job that he's worked at for a really long time. He's wonderful at what he does. And he's not at all interested in this. He's interested in it because I am, but he doesn't want to do it. He's more like, do you need help carrying this piece of furniture in the house kind of deal, which is good. And I think there's something beautiful about that we kind of flipped the switch a little bit. But like, he came home the week before last to have like his bathroom door gone in our bedroom and all the casing off. And he was like, cool. Doesn't even faze him.
I love it.
Oh, what are you doing here? And I was like, oh, I'm installing this door here and I'm going to do this. He's like, cool. Like,
yeah.
It just doesn't, I mean, maybe if it wasn't so normal, like, it would be odd.
Yeah.
It's just not now. My kids, I think they're 6 and 9 now. So I feel like even they're kind of like, oh God, mom's building something else, you know?
What's next?
What's next, mom?
Yeah, exactly.
What are you changing? My daughter the other day asked me to put a barn door in her room. I was like, well, baby, there's not really a spot I can put a barn door in your room. Because, you know, that really depends on if you have the wall for it, right?
Sure.
And so I don't know how she felt about that, because she really felt like she needed one. And I was like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. There's no space for it. But maybe I'll creative and do something else.
There you go.
Their rooms are ironically the only rooms done, really, because I did that before we even moved into this house, because we closed on it. We had some flooring, carpet and stuff replaced, basic stuff. And then like, I painted their rooms and decorated them before we stepped foot in it, because that was the one thing, is I wanted their rooms to be settled, you know?
No, that's good. I mean, again, you're constantly doing things. You're constantly looking to be better. And I think that's just the best. That's what we look for.
Thank you. Yeah.
So
that's like the nicest compliment ever. You know?
Well,
Well, gosh.
Give me a couple minutes. I'll come with a better one. We'll rework it. Awesome. Well, I mean, we probably could talk more about, I don't know, other tools and stuff, but.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, how are we on time?
I guess, okay.
We could do a last question. You know, one of my questions, and because I think people are interested in tools. So let me just ask you about a tool that maybe some listeners should have. So if you are maybe not an amateur, but you don't have a ton of tools, but there's one that you should get that's going to be versatile and it's going to allow you to do small woodworking stuff and, you know, just stuff around the house. Is it like a miter saw? That seems like to be a lot of what people's first go-to is, but what's your opinion?
I'm going to flip it because I love a miter saw. I would say, obviously I named my dog after a miter saw. So let's be real. So I love a good miter saw, but I also think, that honestly, if you practice enough, you can do a lot without one, although I use it virtually every day. So I would say like a drill impact, miter saw, those are all like really essentials. You should have that. But a router, that's what I would go with. So I was really scared of routers for a while because they're intimidating machines. And if you're using like a big 2 1/4 or 2 1/2 or 2 3/4 horsepower router, especially if you're new to it, like there's a little bit of a learning curve. And honestly, like if you said, what's the most dangerous tool in the shop, I would say router for sure, because people don't see them that way, if that makes sense. It's not that they really are. It's that people just don't have the same care with them as they do with like, say, a table saw. But I feel like they're the most versatile tool. Like you can do everything from finished work to like joinery to, I mean, they're like the most versatile tools in the world. I love a good router. I probably have 7 routers.
Why have one when you can have 7 too?
Right.
You know?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, and you have to have a couple different brands, you know, how am I supposed to give a fair, you know?
Sure. That's
I have
true.
a Bosch router in my router table, and I have a freehand DeWalt with a plunge, and I have the cordless DeWalt, and I have the cordless Milwaukee, and I have the Bosch 12 volt, which is really great for like flush trimming. So basically all the routers, just give me all the routers.
That's great. Start with one.
Yeah.
Pro tip is start with one and then just go from there, right?
You know, the other one that I do think of a lot, and it's not as exciting, but people don't give enough credit, is a good multi-tool. You know, you can switch out the heads from like a Delta sander, which is really handy, to little oscillating cutting tools. And so there can be a lot of versatility there too, for sure.
That makes sense.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's good.
Jigsaw. Basically, I could just go on and on.
Paul's going to swing by the Home Depot later, pick up a new router.
Right. That's right.
That's right.
And I'm going to review the Instagram to see which one's the best. So I'm going to go through all your routers.
Yeah, there you go. We'll have to go back.
I'm really diplomatic about it. I'm a big fan of Bosch routers. I'm waiting for them to come out with like an 18 volt quart, you know, because I think they have really great battery technology. Their core batteries are really nice. But I like both the DeWalt and Milwaukee if you're looking for like a compact. They're both good.
There you go. I feel like I just saw something about Milwaukee. Like they just finally released.
Probably the framing nailers. Right?
Yes, that's it.
Yeah. And it is really nice from what I could tell. I don't use framers very often, so I didn't like request it. Maybe I should have, because it's probably would have, I could have found some stuff. But I have some other, I have another framing nailer that I'm going to be testing out here in the next couple months. I won't say from what brand because it's not been announced yet, but that I'm really excited about because it's another cordless. But Milwaukee did good with it. They have the new Brad and Crown stapler too. Brad nailer and Crown stapler. Both of those are really nice.
So stay tuned.
Right? Yeah. There's a lot to love there. They did good.
It's awesome. Sarah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and sharing your knowledge of the industry and just sharing more about yourself. We enjoyed getting to learn a little bit more about you as you continue to learn about everything else. So I love that you branded yourself a forever student. I think that's fantastic. And I really think everyone who listens to the podcast can probably fall into that category. So keep learning, keep educating yourself, and keep educating us, on everything that you're doing.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
It was great. Thank you.
Yay.
Love what you heard? Don't forget to rate and subscribe to our podcast so you can hear from more guests that will benefit your business. Also, please check out our show notes page for more information on what we discussed on this episode. You can find it at buildertrend.com/podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on The Building Code. Appreciate you.